we got to air it out. Let's air it out. So we got to air it out. Let's air it out. So
how do you say that? Air it out. Air it out.
Air it out.
What is going on, football fans? Welcome to another edition of the Air It Out podcast presented by Inside the Hashes. My name is Juan Pablo Gordon Camargo, and I am joined in a podcast room filled with football experts. I got Mr. Avery Collins diagonally of me. I got Mr. Coach Dan Braxton right below me, and a special guest in the show today, 98.5's very own Christopher Thomas. What is up, Chris?
What's going on?
So I know that Avery's already got the arguments cooking up here with Chris, and guys, save it for when we get in later to the show. But before we go forward, I gotta ask you guys. I was on Twitter earlier today, and I saw that Venom 2 was trending. And it was trending because it's going to be now pushed to the same release day as the new Fast and Furious movie that's coming out. And I have to ask you guys, if you had to choose between watching the new Fast and Furious movie or the Venom movie, which one would you choose? I'm going to go Chris, then Avery, and then Coach.
Honestly, probably the new Fast, because at this point, there's really nothing that like Vin Diesel and like that crew could like do. I just want to see them get to a point in those Fast movies where they're actually racing cars in space and like pulling heists on Mars. So I'm curious to see how this Fast movie is gonna eventually go up to like the next universe of like heist spectrums.
Okay. Avery, real quick response.
Absolutely not the Fast. Absolutely not. There's too many of them. There's just so many of those Fast movies at this point. It's getting oversaturated. I love them, don't get me wrong, but it's getting oversaturated. At this point, we need to have some more major characters die off. Vin Diesel's character has to die off. It's got to be done. I want to see Venom too. I mean, I'm a Marvel fan, and Spider-Man is my favorite superhero, so of course I'm going to go see Venom over Fast because, well, one, it's Marvel, two, it's Spider-Man, and Venom is one of my favorite villains of all time. So I'm going to see that one instead, of course.
That's my pick over here with the Pez dispenser sitting up right up there. But Darren, real quick, your pick: the new Fast 9 or Venom 2?
That's simple. It's Venom. Do I really need to see John Cena versus Vin Diesel right now? Is that like a big thing? No. Do I really want to see Venom? Yes. Do I possibly want to see Carnage? Yes. Give me that action right there. Venom, people. Easy money. Easy money.
And little tiny Venom head agrees with you. So it's 3-1 Venom. And that means the Air It Out podcast officially chooses Venom to watch over Fast and the Furious. Sorry, Chris. But now we're getting off the Marvel topic. We're jumping into the football topic. So which brings us into today's rundown. So let's start here with the new league year starting to set on March 17th. ESPN's Diane Rossini tweeted out on Wednesday that an NFL head coach told her that there's going to be, quote, going to be a massacre next week all around the league in regards to the upcoming cuts. So far, it's kind of been showing that massacres will be coming. I mean, we've already had some pretty big name cuts going around the league as it is. The Lions are set to release defensive back Desmond Trufant. The Saints cut all-pro punter Thomas Morstead, along with tight ends Jared Cook and Josh Allen. And then the Giants just released wide receiver Golden Tate and linebacker David Mayo. So relatively low names being released, which could set the precipice for some major on-the-move situations going on right now. And then next bit of news, the Washington football team actually released a player who ended up retiring, linebacker Thomas Davis. The former 14th overall pick from 2005 announced his retirement earlier today, along with tight end Greg Olsen, both of which signed a one-day contract with the Carolina Panthers to retire with that team. In 199 career games, Davis made 1,216 tackles, and 90 of them for loss, 29 sacks, 61 quarterback hits, 18 forced fumbles, 11 fumble recoveries, and a touchdown. He was an All-Pro selection in 2015, while Olsen played 4 seasons with the Chicago Bears after they selected him with the 31st overall pick in 2007. He joined the Panthers in 2011 and played there until he joined the Seahawks in 2020. He had also 199 games played in his career, caught 742 passes for 8,683 yards and 60 touchdowns. He was the primary weapon for Cam Newton and during the time that he was with him in Carolina, going for 3 1,000-yard seasons from 2014 to 2016. And then finally, guys, do you guys remember when the NFL tried to implement a reviewable possibility for pass interference calls, and everyone hated it, so they took it away? Well, now NFL owners are planning to review whether or not roughing the passer penalties are going to be reviewable during the annual league meeting coming at the end of the month. But that's not the only rule change they're considering. They're also considering reverting overtime back to sudden death rules, which would eliminate a change many deem necessary due to the general improvement of kicking abilities. A proposal to offer an alternative to onside kicking, which has become increasingly difficult to recover due to safety rule changes. The second option would be to try a 4th and 15 from a team zone territory, which was also proposed last year during the meetings, but was ultimately rejected. And finally, the Buffalo Bills proposed a requirement for all teams to wait to start the interview process for vacancies in head coaching and GM positions until at least the conference championship round and delay hirings until after the Super Bowl. The goal of this proposal is to try to give more opportunities to qualified minority coaches, with Buccaneers defensive coordinator Todd Bowles and chief offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy serving as prime examples of the current process, keeping them out of legitimate consideration for openings. And guys, that will conclude today's rundown. And Chris, we're touching a little bit about what Diane Rossini said about a massacre. First off, Jerome with the Carnage call, Carnage better than Venom, and the WandaVision finale. I love that we are a good group of Marvel lovers in this chat, so I'll always appreciate that. But anyway, with the Diane Rossini massacre tweet that she said, and a couple of the releases that I just mentioned, do you think that this is just the start, that we're going to see even bigger names getting released, or is that an over exaggeration?
I definitely don't think it's an over exaggeration. When I looked at the salary cap situation, 11 out of the 32 teams are well above the cap. That's well over 1/3 of the NFL that's going to be going behind the 8 ball by the time free agency starts. And the team that has the lowest that's within the salary cap restrictions is the New York Giants, and they only have about $850,000 to spend on free agency. So a lot of teams is definitely going to be, trying to pull themselves out of the hole, particularly the Saints and the Eagles, who are the 2 worst cap situations in football. For the Philadelphia Eagles, since I'm an Eagles fan, Zach Ertz has definitely been talked about in terms of, getting being on the chopping block along with Jason Kelce, potentially retiring or not. Alshon Jeffrey has already been released, same with Deshaun Jackson. So I could definitely see that, teams have already begun to do it, like long-standing tight end for the Minnesota Vikings. Kyle Rudolph is gone. Kyle Van Noy's also a free agent. So I could definitely see it's going to be, because the salary cap has declined as opposed to go up over the past few years. So I could definitely see, a lot of cuts being made just to try to make ends meet.
Avery, one of those cuts was Thomas Davis, the linebacker, played most of his career in Carolina, a stint with the Chargers, then with the Washington football team. Ultimately, now he's finished. To you, what is the lasting impression of Thomas Davis with the NFL? You're on mute, bud.
Sorry about that. So, honestly, you gotta think of Thomas Davis as the personified professional. The guy that's gonna come in and day out, work hard, do his job, and then not only do his job, but do it to an excellent point. When he was paired up with Luke Kuechly, that was one of the best linebacker tandems in the National Football League. You got to understand, those two together were ridiculous. And it was not all Luke Kuechly. So when Kuechly came in, there was one guy he looked up to and looked for help with, and that was Thomas Davis. So you got to give him his flowers while he's gone and while he was there. And that's the guy that definitely deserves it.
Are we looking at Thomas Davis to maybe move up in the next step that Kuechly did? He went to scouting, but could Thomas become a coach?
I can see Thomas Davis easily becoming a coach. The guy has been almost like a mentor figure for the last few years, especially when he stopped over at the Chargers, stopped in with the Washington football team. The guy knows how football works. He knows the linebacker position. And if anyone can make it, he can.
You know, Thomas was also kind of on the receiving end of a lot of penalties going back during his career, either roughing the passer during a lot of the blitzes he was a part of, or the pass interference calls that were made against him. Avery, with that being said, what do you think of the new proposal by the owners? Any of the new proposals I told you, primarily the roughing the passer review?
Well, number one, I just want to give a shout out to Thomas Davis. I think he's one of, if not the most underrated linebacker of all time. He had a phenomenal career. He's top 25 in tackles all time for any linebacker position, right? That means middle, outside, whatever. So I think he's, like I said, one of the most underrated linebackers of our generation. As far as the roughing the passer, I actually like this one because I do feel in some cases quarterbacks get a little too protected, right? I feel like they get a little bit too much of the benefit of the doubt. I mean, there are some plays where it's like for example, I believe it was this most recent AFC Championship game with Josh Allen got a call, and I was just like, not sure if that was a roughing the passer, or it might have been the game before. I think it might have been the game before, but either way, it was like you guys kind of got to review these and see if they're really roughing the passer. Because one thing that we're taught as football players, let the guy know you're there, right? That's one of the first things that we're taught, especially as a defensive back. Even if the pass goes over the receiver's head, still hit him in the back. Let him know you're there. Let him know you would have made the play. If you're on kickoff and the football goes out of the back of the end zone, you run down and you touch the guy who's going to be returning the ball to let him know you would have been there. Those are things that we're taught in football. So we're not talking about taking somebody's head off. We're talking about just touching, shoving the guy, letting him know, hey, I'm here. I would have been there. And so I feel like that's a part of the game. I feel like that's a part of competitive edge that it gives certain guys. And when you take those things away, I think it changes the game, and it changes how aggressive guys can be with going after quarterbacks, because it's like I have to let up a little bit because I don't know if I'm going to get called for, a penalty or not. And so I like it. And I like it for both ways, for the quarterback and for the defense, because we've seen situations like with Cam Newton and Russell Wilson and
Aaron Rodgers and the broken clavicle. Yeah. No.
Yeah, and Andrew Luck and guys who are bigger who can kind of deal with a lot of the hits. They don't get the calls that, let's say, a Tom Brady or a Peyton Manning or Matt Ryan would have gotten. So, I think it works on both sides. So I'm in favor of it.
What about the minority coaching hire stipulation that the Bills are trying to propose, Avery and Chris too? Your quick thoughts on that before we move on to the next topic.
I think that, listen, I put it to you this way. There shouldn't be a rule. Simple as that. There shouldn't have to be a rule. It's as simple as that. Why should there have to be a rule that says that minorities should be getting hired? I mean, that should be given. I mean, if you think of it like this, the NFL is probably 80, and I'm probably going low here. It's probably, I'm gonna say 80% minority players in the league right now. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What better person to coach somebody than somebody who's been there before? They've been there. These guys have played and been there before. They should absolutely be given the opportunities to be coaches and execs and different things like that, because they understand the game. They've been there. A lot of these other coaches may not have been there. So that's my only gripe with that. But like I said, there shouldn't be a rule. I mean, to me, it's like, I almost look at it as like charity, and it's annoying at this point.
It basically looks like I can't really comment on it right now. I'm still trying to process my thoughts on it myself. So, Chris, give your take on it.
Man, I'm kind of in agreement with Avery. It shouldn't be a rule. Like, between now the Rooney Rule and if you do hire a minority head coach or somebody in a general manager position for an office, you get extra picks for it. Like I understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to include and get more diversity for your locker room, for organizations. But the fact that we're having these rules in place kind of feels like I don't know, in a way insulting. In the end, these organizations are going to hire, who they want to hire. Listen, even though the fact that Raheem Morris and, Eric Bieniemy definitely deserve like job opportunities, especially, the jobs that they've done, in their respective, positions. And again, if Jacksonville wanted a guy like Urban Meyer, they were going to get Urban Meyer regardless if they were going to interview Raheem Morris or Eric Bieniemy at a later date. So I just don't. I'm not a fan of it. If anything, I kind of feel like, the only reason why they're going to do it is, just to get, extra draft capital. And I kind of feel like we're worth more than that. I feel like the person that you should be getting in charge of your franchise, in terms of whether it's coaching or management, should be the best guy there. You shouldn't be rewarded because of that if you hire one of a minority guy.
The only minority coaches that I can think off the top of my head right now: Robert Saleh with the New York Jets, Mike Tomlin, Brian Flores, David Coley with the Houston Texans. If I really, really think about it, I'm stumped on the others.
And Ron Rivera.
Absolutely.
Think of it. You can count them on one hand. That's the issue.
Yeah, you can.
Right. That's the issue. There's 32 teams, and you can count them on one hand. So I'll leave it at that.
32 teams with 32 teams, each one a different makeup, and each one trying to build themselves into a contender regardless of what they're trying to hire. But there is one team trying to vie for at least some form of contention. That's the Arizona Cardinals right now, as they just signed J.J. Watt to a 2-year, $31 million deal. The high-prized defensive end out of Houston has finally found a home in the desert with not only his former teammate in DeAndre Hopkins, so that's kind of a 1-2 punch to the Houston Texan gut, but also alongside a premier veteran pass rusher in Chandler Jones, who suffered a torn ACL last year, but still proved that he is a viable force on the other side of the ball in his mid-30s. Now, Watt made the announcement himself, saying in an Instagram post, saying, "Source, me." He actually broke his own news. He didn't tell Ian Rappaport. He didn't tell Adam Schefter. He broke the news himself. So kudos for him to that. He said that the main reason he went to Arizona was because he believed in Kyler Murray and that he could be a driving force in the league into pushing for an NFL championship. And a little fun fact, a fake Peloton account called KJ Watt had Buffalo, Green Bay, and Cleveland as destinations that looked like JJ was leaning towards there. But it was a fake account, and it fooled even Field Yates, ESPN NFL reporter, and he was the one that tweeted it out. So that kind of makes me laugh a little bit. The one criticism I see is that Stephen A. Smith went on First Take and said that J.J. Watt's reason for joining the Cardinals is just pure BS. That he only did it for the money. And some people are saying that Stephen A. is only mad because J.J. spurred Stephen A.'s favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I want to give it over to Chris first and then Avery, guys. What do you think of the J.J. Watt signing?
Well, yeah. I mean, have you ever been to the city of Arizona? I mean, somebody's giving me $31 million to live in that good city, then I'll take it too.
Overall, you mean Phoenix, man?
Yeah, Phoenix. Yeah.
But
overall, the move kind of, was left field for me also. I thought like a team like, Cleveland, being paired up with Myles Garrett, and the fact that they won their first playoff game and the fact that he was able to play, his brothers in Pittsburgh twice a year will be really enticing. We'll go to Green Bay to try to ensure that front seven with the Smith brothers and Kenny Clark. But this move, kind of shocked me. Him and that just number one, that means Hassan Reddick is gone. And number two, hopefully, and first of all, let me just say this right now. Isaiah Simmons is not a center. It's not a safety. That man's a linebacker. Put him in that front seven, along with J.J. Watt, along with, the rest of those guys. But it's still a lot of work to do. They just barely missed the playoffs last year because now it's 7 teams going into the postseason, so they just barely missed out, and Chicago took that playoff spot for them. The NFC West is going to be really tough this year. Kyler Murray, he definitely showed strides last year, and I think him going into now his third year in the offense, second with throwing the ball to DeAndre Hopkins, and now you get a real veteran presence who has been on the receiving end of playoff wins. That's something that you add to a young locker room that hasn't experienced playoffs before. So I think if anything, like him going to an NFC team, a young NFC team at that, and probably the toughest division of football, I don't see them winning the division because I still feel like the Rams are still the team to beat. And I feel like a healthy 49ers team is probably second, but they're definitely going to be competing for a playoff spot.
And that being said, it's a fierce pass rusher coming into a division that's known for having quite a bit of talent at the defensive position in pass rushing specifically. I mean, the Rams have Aaron Donald, the Seahawks have Jamal Adams, the 49ers have Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead on their line. So, Avery, real quick, if you were to rank all 4 defensive pass rushing teams here, how would you put them?
Rams, 49ers, Colts, Rams, 49ers, Cardinals, and then Seattle. Listen. So I'm torn. I feel like Steven has got some. There's some merit to him, saying JJ went there for the money. I mean, of course, right? You want to get paid, but I mean, he's also JJ is also right when he said like Kyler really has a chance to do great things in this league, right? Like we saw it. We saw the Hail Murray. We saw the different plays that he made outside the pocket. We saw the plays that he made inside the pocket. We saw what he did and how he, progressed as a second-year player. So for me, I believe that JJ made the move based on both of those things. I don't think it was solely based on winning, because honestly, to me, if it was based on if it was really solely on winning, and you're going to that division, there's no other team that you go to than the Rams. You mean to tell me that you pairing up with Aaron Donald doesn't almost guarantee like if they paired up with Aaron Donald, they'd be my Super Bowl pick. Period. Point blank. Period. I mean, you don't stop that pass rush. That is ridiculous. You can't.
It's too bad the Rams didn't have any cap space to bring him in, though.
Of course, but the point is if they went over there, that's what I'm saying. Like if he wanted to win, and that's why I said if he solely wanted to win, he would have went there. That's why I said it's about the money and he wants to win. Because of that simple fact, because of the fact that if he really just truly wanted to win, you go and team up with Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, and now you got Matthew Stafford. Man, they would have been my Super Bowl pick. So I think it was both that he wanted to win and that he wanted the money.
Also the fact that he just wanted to leave Houston. He just wanted out of Houston and to make his mark somewhere else. And Jerome's right here. Rumor had he had better offers. But he also doesn't agree with that JJ Watt. Because JJ Watt apologized for Deshaun Watson after the bad season. Think Hopkins was also a big influence. That's true. There could be a multitude of reasons why he went to Arizona. Signing a free agency is a monster no one else anticipates. Like you never know where anyone's going to go. Sometimes it's not for the most money. Sometimes it's not for winning a championship. There's multiple reasons it could happen. But
unpopular opinion: the Cardinals trade for Deshaun Watson. I'm joking. I'm kidding. That's pretty outlandish. But could you imagine what?
If they don't have the cap space to keep Hassan Reddick or any other key defensive player, what makes you think they're going to have the cap space for Deshaun Watson? I'm leaving that in the dust.
Not to mention the biggest issue with Deshaun Watson Houston now is the lack of protection, and you want to put him behind Arizona's offensive line that also can't protect Kyler Murray.
It's better than Houston's.
But not the organization. And with that being said, like Arizona just went big in free agency, but they're not the only ones trying to be aggressive in the free agency market, and that's what we're going to talk about a little bit here. I want to ask you guys real quick: who do you think is going to be the most aggressive team in free agency in going into 2021? I had 6 teams already on my board, kind of doing a little bit of research myself. I had the Packers, the Bills, the Colts, the Jaguars, the Jets, and the Chargers. But Avery, you go first real quick, and then Chris, you go next.
I'll say this real quick, and then I got to jump off. I think it's going to be the Jets. They got the most cap space, right? I think they've got the most money to be aggressive in free agency, and they've got the most leverage. They got the number 2 overall pick. I mean, there's so much going in favor for the Jets right now. You've got money.
They also have the most needs. the most needs to cover.
Right. So you've got, and it's a huge market, right? So you get to play in New York, all these different things. So it's, for me, I think it's going to be the New York Jets. Like they said, they got the money, and contrary to popular belief, again, it's not like, Sam Darnold is the worst quarterback we've ever seen. So it's not to say that they can't keep him there, get things done with him, get him some free agent receiver who can actually catch the ball, Allen Robinson. You bring him some defensive players that actually can cover on the back end and get some pass rush outside of Leonard Williams and different things like that. So to me, I think the Jets are going to be the most aggressive in free agency. I think the team that should be the most aggressive, though, is out of the Packers and the Colts. The reason being is because they're right on the precipice. They're right on the cusp of being in the Super Bowl. And so I think they should be the most aggressive, and they should potentially take some of those risks. But I'm going to say that the Jets, because of the positioning that they're in, the leverage that they have, I think the Jets are going to be the most aggressive. I'm actually surprised that we haven't heard more, rumors about some of the the plans that they have moving forward with free agency. But I guess we'll see. I think obviously it starts with potentially landing Deshaun Watson.
It's all about the QB position in New York. Chris, real quick, what team do you think is going to be the most aggressive, and what needs do they have to fill?
I'm not going to say the Jaguars or the Jets because they're easy targets and they have the most cap space for a reason. And fundamentally, just because you have the most cap space doesn't mean not everybody wants to go there. But for me, the team that has to be the most aggressive is probably the New England Patriots. Especially after the season that they had, this is the first time in New England's tenure under Bill Belichick they had a losing season. So Belichick needs to figure out who his quarterback is, whether he re-signs Cam Newton or they get somebody in the draft. Their wide receiver room is going to be bared because they still can't hit on a wide receiver in the draft. And not to mention, they're getting a few defensive players back. Because a lot of them opted out. However, Stephon Gilmore is still on the trading block from what I've been hearing. So they still got plenty of money to, play around. And in the end, if the bottom line in the NFL is all about winning. So if you want to win and you want to be a part of a culture that is more or less about winning, especially over the last 2 decades, then New England is definitely the place to go. They got to be aggressive in free agency because the Bills are right there in terms of being Super Bowl contenders. The Jets have the cap space and the draft capital, so they can go from like worst to first. Just with a good few off-season moves. And the Miami Dolphins just missed out of the playoffs last year at 10-6. So maybe Tua may take that next jump. Maybe he gets a brand new wide receiver to throw to, or maybe they do get Deshaun Watson. He joins the AFC East. But I feel like Belichick is weathering the storm and getting ready to finally get the checkbook ready to be aggressive on free agency.
Well, whoever is going to be the most aggressive, they're going to need a lot of money to spend. Avery, good luck with your meeting. We'll see you next time, and we'll be having you in our thoughts for that goal we were talking about off screen, man. Later, bro. And Chris, I'm kind of just like thinking about like a lot of these expenses. I know one team in particular that we didn't really touch on with regards in aggressiveness. I have to say is the San Diego Chargers. They have $27 million in cap space right now, but it could be
LA Chargers.
Like it could be
LA.
someone. It could be. You like them? Like it
No,
could
no.
be
I,
like
I was saying LA. I was saying LA.
you were saying what?
No,
Okay.
it's LA, not San Diego.
Oh, oh man, my bad. I was thinking about the the LA Chargers. First off, it's a number 2 market right behind New York City. They have 27 million in cap space, and they need to make splashes with big names. All right, particularly on the offensive line. They're losing 3 offensive linemen into free agency. Forrest Lamb, possibly the other Pouncey brother, because the one in Pittsburgh already retired. And they need to find a complimentary pass rusher alongside Joey Bosa because Melvin Ingram might be out the door and he's already an aging veteran. So real quick, if you were to fill in the slot for San Diego Chargers, how would you navigate that and who would you go after?
I think a priority for them has to try to re-sign Hunter Henry first. I feel like Justin Herbert's an absolute stud. And I feel like he's definitely going to be in that conversation for top 5 quarterbacks going forward, kind of similar to what Phillip Rivers was, right after, during that Peyton Manning, Tom Brady era. But I think Hunter Henry's definitely a priority. As far as pass rushers go, I don't have really a list set up right now for me, but I feel like in terms of, getting those players in the trenches that they're losing also on the offensive line and another pass rusher, I feel like they can definitely target somebody in the draft. Unfortunately for them, they're picking in the teens, so maybe they could probably get, some offensive lineman help, and probably like in the later parts of the draft, get themselves, some pass rushers. But I feel like definitely, you in the end, you win the game in the trenches. But Tampa Bay definitely showed that this year on both sides of the ball in that Super Bowl run and during the Super Bowl where they completely decimated that Kansas City offense.
And 2 other teams we didn't get a chance to talk about to possibly be aggressive are the Baltimore Ravens and the Cleveland Browns. But that doesn't mean that they're not active, especially at the quarterback position, as both teams are trying to figure out how they're going to extend both of their franchise quarterbacks going forward, whether it's the Browns with Baker Mayfield or Lamar Jackson with the Baltimore Ravens. But let me ask you, man, like in that draft class that they both came out of, it was Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, Lamar Jackson, and Baker Mayfield. 3 of them came out being answers for their team. Of course, I'm talking about Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, and Lamar Jackson. We already know Allen's going to be getting his extension coming anytime soon. Maybe not this offseason, but the next one. But if we had to narrow it down to the number 1 overall pick, which was Baker, and the 32nd overall pick in Lamar Jackson, literally polar opposites of the first round, who do you think is going to get that extension?
Who's just gonna get it, or who's gonna get it first?
Who's going to get it first?
I feel like Lamar Jackson's gonna get it first. I like the fit in Cleveland with Kevin Stefanski and Baker Mayfield. I feel like that was necessary. That was a necessary coaching change that Cleveland needed to do. You can see that Baker's a lot more comfortable, running that offense, kind of similar to what Kirk Cousins did in Minnesota. A lot of play action. He's not the number 1 guy. Like they're not airing it out 40 times. They have a really good, combination of complementary running attack and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. But Lamar Jackson does absolutely everything for your offense. In terms of the passing attack, and that RPO style that Greg Roman likes to run, he pretty much, Lamar Jackson sets up everything for your offense. They don't have that legitimate number 1 receiver like you want to see, like Baker Mayfield has in Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham when he gets back, or like Josh Allen has with Stephon Diggs. So I feel like that needs to be a priority. But I feel like Baltimore already knows what they have from him. Like, he's a former MVP. They finally got their first playoff win. So I feel like that's definitely something that's going to be built upon. And I think the city of Baltimore is behind Lamar Jackson. And honestly, I'm not going to waste any time. Does he deserve, the same money that like a Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson does? I would say yes, because of what you're demanding Lamar Jackson to do for your offense. He does the exact same thing, and he matters just as much as Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes for your offense.
I will say I'm really surprised you said that because I don't think Lamar Jackson should get Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes level money. And the reason I say that is because Lamar Jackson is still developing as a passer in this league. Okay. A lot of the routes that he's been given to run have mostly been like simple fade routes and slants to receivers, as well as just outside the pocket improvisation. He's still developing as a passer, and with Greg Roman operating the system the way that he does, it's so run focused that you're not allowing Lamar to develop the arm, which is the primary thing a quarterback is supposed to do. And we saw it play out in the playoffs. Yeah, they were able to escape with a win against the Tennessee Titans in the wildcard round, but when it came to the Bills in cold weather, when they're supposed to be running the ball, they couldn't get anything going on either the passing or the running game. So I don't think Lamar is going to hit that level of money that even Deshaun Watson has. Maybe might be a little bit more lower, around like the $20 to $18 million range. All right, Chris got paused here for a minute, but in the meantime, I will make the argument also for Baker Mayfield, not deserving of that money. Personally, I don't think either quarterback has really hit that upper echelon of talent right now. If you're looking purely at the stats, Baker Mayfield right now, 46 games played, has 11,115 passing yards and a 75 to 43 touchdown ratio. Not bad for a guy in his third year, but he has only a 23 to 22 win-loss ratio, which is pretty troubling. Because how much of it can you contribute to Baker Mayfield versus how the Browns had operated in his 2 years there? He's been through 3 head coaches, with the third one being the charm. And is that enough to say that he deserves that contract? I'd say both players deserve an extension, but not at the level of Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson. Like I said, Lamar Jackson around 20, maybe 22 million a year, and Baker Mayfield at least 20.
Well, here's the thing. Quarterbacks aren't getting paid, that much. Like, I think like quarterbacks like Derek Carr, like Kirk Cousins now, because they signed their deals like early on, like a few years ago, they're making that much money now. But the price of quarterbacks is definitely going up. And to try to make the argument for Lamar Jackson, the kid did lead the league in touchdown passes thrown during his MVP season. So he does have the capability of taking over a game with his arm. He just has the ability to take over a game, period. However, when you look at his wide receivers, Hollywood Brown's a good compliment. He's not a number one. Same with Willie Smith and Mark Andrews. He's a really solid tight end, but you're talking in terms of if he's in the tier of Travis Kelce, a Darren Waller, or a George Kittle, he's not. He's a tier below that. So I feel like if you get him a legitimate number one receiver, I'm talking like Kenny Galladay, I'm talking Allen Robinson, or even in the draft, you get a guy like Rondell Moore or like a Rashard Bateman. I feel like that could be the next evolution of Lamar Jackson's game, because now you have, that legitimate wide receiver that he can throw to on like, those 3rd and 8s and those 3rd and 10s. He can just throw that ball up and you know that receiver's going to get there. And as far as Baker Mayfield's concerned, I like Baker coming out of the draft, but I feel like now the offense is less focused on him and more towards the running backs. So how much are you really going to pay a guy that the quarterback's not the central focus of your offense? So if anything, I feel like Lamar should definitely get paid more than what Baker Mayfield has to offer.
Oh, I completely agree. No, like I was saying, like that's what I gave him my price range, which like Lamar getting 20 to 22 million, and then Baker around 20 to like 18. Because he's more of a game manager style quarterback than anything right now. He hasn't he can show that he can rip the ball and he can make the big plays, but he doesn't do it on a consistent needing level a la Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes. But what I said about Lamar Jackson is still hold true. I still think there's more to develop as a passer, and if Greg Roman can find a way to kind of like receivers are one thing, you're absolutely right, but it's also like good quarterbacks do their best with what they have, even with really, really a minimum receiving course. So like with that being said, like I think if Greg Roman can find a way to really unlock more of a passing game for the Ravens, then yeah, I'll talk about giving Lamar Jackson 25 to $30 million a year. And then the man of the hour arrives, which is Mr. Darren Braxton. He's back. He's comfortable. He's living. We were just quickly talking about, whether about who to get the extension first, Baker Mayfield or Lamar Jackson. And both of us agree. I think we agree. We both said Lamar Jackson. I don't think Baker Mayfield necessarily needs his extension first, but Chris thinks that it's the Sean Jackson level money. I disagree. I think it's much lower at a 20 to 22 million range. Darren, what do you think?
Wait, the 20 to 22 million range for Baker or Lamar?
Lamar.
Oh, okay, so let's get this straight, people. Let's get this straight. So Lamar Jackson in his really first full season as the starter was the MVP. The guy came in and absolutely dominated the league. In his second year, his numbers look very comparable to his first. Yes, he passed for a little bit less, but with the receivers he has and the weapons he has around him this year, we understand why the passing game was the way it is. And then when you add in the fact of the play calling and how the plays were schemed up, it was very hard for him to pass. And when you talk about a running team, such as the Ravens, you're not going to have the greatest pass numbers. But when the guy went and broke for 2 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons from a quarterback, and you're talking 20 to $22 million range, that's a slap in the face. I'm sorry. Baker Mayfield is going to get close to $30 million when he cons his extension. Yes, $30 million. The way that the quarterback market is now, for a comparable starting franchise quarterback, you have to start the tag at almost $30 million. I'm sorry. And then you have to understand, Baker Mayfield is still going to get his extension. We all understand Kevin Stefanski is the one that mainly got the Browns there. But Baker Mayfield played his butt off this season, guys. Especially down the stretch, once Odell left, he was absolutely looking like that number 1 overall pick.
But remember, the last 2 players to get those huge extensions midway through the rookie contract, it was Carson Wentz and it was Jared Goff. And then both those players got traded away not even 2 years later into those contracts. So I get what you're saying. Both players invaluable to these teams, but buyer beware, especially with quarterbacks who still have inky futures going into this season. So is it really at the $30 million range, or can you settle to around 25 to 22 million?
You throw out 25 to 22 million and you better get ready to lose your quarterback and be on the hunt for the next one. It is what it is, people. You have to understand the quarterback dynamic. If Kirk Cousins is getting 28 at minimum, fully guaranteed, are you telling me that Baker is not better than Cousins? Are you telling me Lamar Jackson is not better than Cousins? That is my point here, guys. The market is going to dictate somewhat of the prices. Now, how high up they go depends on the player. For example, Patrick Mahomes, he earned all his $500 million that he possibly can get. But when it comes to Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, those type of guys, I can see them hitting $35, $40 million range, as Deshaun Watson has already gotten his $40 million. So I'm sorry, I gotta give it to him. Lamar's going to get signed first. Lamar's getting between 35 to 40 million. Baker's going next, and I'm giving him $33 to $37 million a year.
Jeez, my goodness! Look, wow. You know, I've always kind of thought this. I don't know if I ever expressed it. The quarterback market is just too saturated in terms of like what's being paid. I'll say it now: quarterbacks are overpaid. They are overpaid. A lot of them, all right, and it's because of like the perceived invaluability that quarterbacks have, and you know what? I've seen Super Bowl teams with far lesser quarterbacks win, and what they've had to do. The 2000 Ravens, for example, who was even that guy? Do you remember? Was it Brad Johnson? Was it
Trent Dilfer? People,
Trent Dilfer. It was Trent
Dilfer.
And that guy was probably rated as one of the worst Super Bowl quarterbacks ever.
Correct.
So that's what I'm trying to say.
Same the 2000s anymore, Juan.
But that's true. But I don't think quarterback drives this league anymore. I don't think it's going to work. And honestly, this is ultimately a team sport, and we've seen that a quarterback doesn't always make the difference with regards to teams winning. All right, and
it kind of does.
Whether it does, debatable for another day. For now,
all I'm saying is this: if the 49ers had a better quarterback than like Jimmy Garoppolo, they probably win that Super Bowl.
Yes.
Everything about
if they have any
49ers. Yeah, I'm telling you, if they had, let's just say for the sake of argument,
so you're saying that quarterbacks matter for a winning team, right? So does that mean you're finally going to admit that Tom Brady is actually a really good quarterback, not just the luckiest quarterback?
He's a combination of both. He's the ultimate
I'll say
combination.
that. Listen, all I'll say is this: like Tampa Bay, listen, all they asked for Tom Brady was like, listen, because he was taking over a quarterback that threw 30 interceptions. Listen, just cut that in half. Jameis did that. We were 7-9. Cut that in half. We're 11-5. And that's exactly what happened. They cut that in half. They went on a playoff run. The defense, had one of the best Super Bowl runs in probably modern NFL history, given the rule changes that everything, goes against now the defense for more offensive explosion. And they dominated. So it's a combination of both.
And please do not forget that running game that really came alive down the stretch and really dominated in the playoffs between that 1-2 punch of Ronald Jones III and Leonard Fournette.
Listen, all I'm saying is, for my argument, you can't bargain bin or dumpster dive for quarterbacks if you want to make a legitimate run. Blake Bortles got them to an AFC Championship game, but if they had a better quarterback than Blake Bortles, if they had like a Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, they probably would have been in the Super Bowl that year instead of New England.
Well, your experiment might be put to the test. Jared Goff took the Rams to a Super Bowl in 2017. Let's see what Matthew Stafford can do with that same scheme and those similar weapons on the top defense. So let's see it put to the test. And with that being said, we're getting out to near the end of our show. But before we do, I just want to say, guys, that I'm going to be taking a temporary leave of absence from the Air It Out podcast for a while. I'm in the middle of a moving transition up to Milwaukee for a new position that opened up over there. So you'll be seeing someone else take over for a while on hosting duties. But I can honestly say, this is what I've had nothing but the time of my life on this podcast. I've met so many great people and got to interact with so many different personalities, and I can't imagine doing anything else this fun, guys. So I really appreciate everyone here, and Chris, especially whenever you bring me on to your radio show down in Philly. Always having the time of my life with you and Mark. It's awesome, man. And Coach, I hope you're teaching those kids well, not only on the values of football, but the values of life, man. And your Ravens opinions, and I will get the Lamar Jackson jersey soon. I'm trying to anyway. So I appreciate y'all. And Avery's not here, but I appreciate him and I miss him a lot. Same with Darius, who's celebrating his anniversary right now. So, and even Jerome, our producer in the background, with the effects going in and his eagle anger towards Harry Roseman will always have me laughing forever and ever and ever forever. So, final thoughts before we wrap up here today, guys.
Fire Howie. Fire Howie as well. Yeah. Colts need to be the most aggressive team in free agency. They have basically the entire setup to make the Super Bowl run. They get aggressive in free agency and add the last pieces. That team is going to be dangerous. Dangerous.
Especially with Carson Wentz.
Listen, yeah. And Juan, we're really going to miss you. Listen, after all the hard work you've done for Inside the Hashes, you definitely deserve your flowers, man. We're really going to miss you. And we know that whatever's next for you, you're going to absolutely kill it. And listen, we always got the group chat.
Always got that group chat. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's edition of the Air It Out podcast, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter. We are at Air It Out Podcast on Twitter, but you can also follow Inside the Hashes on Twitter as well, which is at Inside Hashes, as well as on Instagram at Inside the Hashes, and on Facebook, Inside the Hashes, the football group. You can also find all of our audio work, all of our podcasts, all of our interviews on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Anchors. Just type in Inside the Hashes. Anything that you listen to audio podcasts, we're there, baby. Also, guys, check out our YouTube and our website for our blogs, for our videos, for our graphics, for our takes. All of our material is out there to check out. We welcome you to go find it because we have so much for you guys to check out and offer, and write back to us about your thoughts and opinions. And if you want to interact with us directly, I'm going to go ahead and encourage you to go join our Discord, you guys. You can join us and talk football at all levels, at the high school level, at the college level, at the indoor arena level, at the fan-controlled football league level. Like, what the heck did Johnny Manziel come from in that league, and how is he tearing it up with the way that he is? Don't know. I'd love to ask someone about it so that they can tell me more. So go tell me in the Discord. And guys, with that being said, everyone, thank you so much for tuning into the Air It Out podcast. For Darren Braxton, for Avery Collins, for Darius Reddick, who's happy anniversary to you and your boo, man. For Christopher Thomas, thank you for joining us here today. And for Jerome Jones behind the glass, my name is Juan Pablo Guarni Camargo. We'll see you next time.